Thank you. The gentleman from California, Mr. Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Walsh, thank you for coming before the committee today. I'm not sure you're aware or not, but last year my office, alongside with some members of this committee, submitted a letter to the department asking for the adoption of a salary threshold in line with the historical high point of salary thresholds, the 55th percentile of earnings of full-time salaried workers nationwide, which would be at least $82,732 by 2026. I want you to know that I'm planning to send another letter reiterating that same request and asking for an update on the rulemaking process, because I'm frankly concerned that we're going to be running out of time to get this rule promulgated. Now, do you believe that the current overtime pay threshold of $35,568 for white-collar employees is too high, too low, or just about right?
Thank you, Congressman. I actually don't have an opinion on that at the moment. We have just gone through listening sessions, so I do not have an public opinion on that at this moment.
I understand. Well, maybe I can ask you this. Are you aware that in the 1970s, roughly 65% of all salaried workers qualified for overtime pay?
I was not.
That is true. And what I also believe is true is, you happen to know what the overtime pay, what percent of workers were covered by the overtime threshold, who was eligible, what percent were eligible under by the time that Obama was president?
I don't have that number either.
Between 7 and 10%. The threshold had never been updated, or had been so infrequently updated that the numbers of Americans who worked full-time salary jobs who were covered by overtime pay under the FLSA had atrophied, had declined from 65% to around 10%. Well, you know that President Obama and his Secretary of Labor promulgated a rule toward the end of the second term of the Obama administration, the second administration, and that rule was invalidated by a conservative federal court judge. However, the Labor Secretary under Trump appealed that case. And it is your belief that you have the authority as Secretary of your department to establish the threshold?
I believe we do through the rulemaking process. And at the end of the Obama administration, and I believe in the beginning days of the Trump administration, they did address the issue of overtime. They moved it to in a positive way, not quite to the 55 percentile, but I know that they did move it. So I believe, from what I've been told by my solicitor and through the process, we do have the ability to look at not just overtime, but also duty stations if we choose.
Well, were you aware that the Trump DOL rule gutted overtime pay and protections for roughly 4.2 million workers that were previously eligible to receive overtime pay compensation under the Obama administration rule?
Yeah, I knew that the Trump rule was very different than the Obama rule.
So there was a differential. Yeah. So even though that President Trump argued that he was a populist trying to do right by America's working people, the rule that they promulgated meant that 4.2 million workers that would have been covered, would have been made eligible, were not eligible under the Trump rule. You were aware of that, right? Okay. Can you speak further about when DOL plans to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking?
I don't have an exact timeline. We just finished the public, taking input from the public comment, and we're going to be looking and seeing what the information we've received from people.
Well, many legislators, such as myself, are under the impression that time is working against us and that an important window of opportunity may soon close. In the past, I've introduced legislation to index the overtime threshold. Do you believe that this is necessary?
I believe we have to look at it, take a serious look at it as we move forward.
Okay. Policies such as the federal minimum wage, overtime threshold, and the standard work week all exist to mandate standards for the well-being of workers. I recently introduced the 32-hour work week bill to reduce the standard work week from 40 hours to 32 hours by lowering the maximum hours threshold for overtime compensation for non-exempt employees under the FLSA. We're starting to see countries around the world begin to experiment with truncated work weeks. Have you paid attention to these preliminary pilot programs?
I've certainly, after you mentioned it to me when we visited your district, I've been paying attention to it.
All right. Well, I'm running out of time, but maybe we can have further public discussion of this.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.